We're gonna swim, bike, and run in the corner sun. We're gonna swim, bike, and run in the corner sun. 2021.
Poncho Man, thank you for bringing it like only you can. Again, this is Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by Hoka One One, by Credo Tri, Four Seasons Hualalai, Challenge Daytona, Form Goggles, Canyon Bikes, Normatec, Amp Human, VeloFix, You Can, and our Challenge Athletes Foundation. We just sent out 3,921 grants totaling $5.9 million to keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport right before COVID hit. Our next guest, the ultra marathon man himself, Mr. Dean Karnazes, joins us. Dean the Dream, it looks like you haven't had a haircut since, I don't know, March? What the hell's going on?
It's been since March. Actually, I think since February.
So when you first came on, I'm like, oh, that's a great Halloween costume. This is your real deal. This is, you've let your hair go that long.
This is real too. Look at that.
Oh, I love that.
My wife is just ready. My wife can't divorce me because there's nowhere to go, and there's no one's doing divorces these days. So
I don't know anybody who's usually as busy as you are. I mean, how many events have you not been able to go to? Like between March and
I mean, you and I can both cry on each other's shoulders, but this was supposed to be my busiest year ever. So I had a global schedule that was, kind of overwhelming. You know how it is when you're traveling that much, you kind of get overwhelmed. Now I'm like looking back thinking I would love just one event.
Yes, any event, right? Any event.
I mean, I'm so over the virtual racing. It's such a empty experience. It just, every virtual race now makes me long for how good we once had it, Yeah.
And it's funny because it's a lot of times you go, okay, when you get sick, you're going to come out the other end and things will be okay. But you really have to wonder when it comes to big road races, 20,000 person events, what is going to be the new normal? What will that look like?
I was thinking about you yesterday because yesterday was the supposed to be the 2020 New York City Marathon. And remember, you attended your first New York City Marathon in 2019.
Last year.
Can you see 100,000 people walking through the Javits Center anytime in the next 5 years? I don't see when that's going to, come back online to that extent.
I can't imagine. So I know you've had time to work on a new book. With your new book, A Runner's High, when's that coming out?
It's not coming out until spring and next year, but I just finished the manuscript and turned it in, and you know the process. So pretty excited about that. Yeah. And
you did a documentary on the 50-50-50 years ago. Now, are you talking about a theatrical release of a new film on 50-50-50?
Actually, the film, I sold rights to my first book, so this is the story of Ultra Marathon Man. So it's not about running. It predates running 50 marathons. So it is a theatrical release. So it's not a documentary. It's based on a true story, but it should be interesting to see when that comes out.
So wait a second. So somebody will be playing Dean Karnazes.
It's going to look like me at 30 years old. Yeah, because it's kind of based on a younger Dean Karnazes.
So for our audience that is not familiar with the story, we're talking about 30th birthday, corporate job, just, not really excited about your life. And you basically leave the bar and decide to run 30 miles in regular shoes. And talk a little bit about what was going through your head at the time. And when did that light bulb go off that this is what I want to do?
Well, going through my head at the time was a lot of tequila. But I had that epiphany, kind of like you did. I mean, our stories are not that much different, where I had a corporate job. I got an MBA. I was in a comfortable, cushioned job and kind of miserable. Like, I didn't feel like I belonged. Like, I didn't like being a corporate guy. I kind of hated it. Didn't feel like I fit in at all. I felt like an outcast. And that night on my 30th birthday, it just kind of came to a head, and I decided instead of drinking more tequila to celebrate, I was going to go run 30 miles. Very bad idea.
And so your wife has to be thinking, when you call her in the morning and haven't been home all night, she's got to be thinking the worst. What did she say to you when you finally called?
You know, she was worried because I'd never not come home before. That was the first time I'd been gone all night. And she also knew I was drinking. She didn't like, she doesn't like the bar scene, so she went home early. And she also was a dentist, so she had an early morning. But she just said, no questions asked of whatever you need. And I said, I just need a ride home. And she said, well, where are you? I'll come get you right away. And I said, I'm out in front of 7-Eleven. And she's like, you mean the 7-Eleven down on Geary Street? And I said, no, the 7-Eleven in Half Moon Bay. And she said, what do you mean? That's 30 miles from here. How did you get to Half Moon Bay? And I said, I ran. And she said, you don't sound very stable. Just hold tight and I'll come get you right away. So that was kind of the start of ultra marathoning.
So back in those days, we see a number of folks now who aren't necessarily making a living as a professional runner because they're winning all the races. People can make a living in a lot of different ways, especially now in the age of social media. This is before social media. And you made a decision that you're going to leave your corporate job and make a living doing exactly what? Did you have a sense of what you were going to do to make a living?
Bob, I had no idea. I just knew I had to do it. And I had this premonition that if I didn't do it, even if I failed, if I didn't do it, I would my whole life regret like not having tried. So I just figured throw yourself into it, figure it out, and you can make a go of it, just with your passion alone. And it was, our stories are not that dissimilar because you did the same thing.
I didn't run 50 marathons in 50 days in 50 states. I started a magazine, right? I started a charity. So the genesis of 50-50-50, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think it was not dissimilar to you creating a magazine. I thought, I want to do something challenging, but I don't want it to be just about me. Like I want it to be inclusive. I wanted to be more about an event to bring people together and inspire people. So the genesis was, I met a guy at the Boston Marathon who came up to me after one of my presentations and said he was a member of the 50 State Club. And I said, well, what's that? He said, well, I run a marathon in every state of the union. And I said, every state has a marathon? He said, yeah, they do. So I asked him how long it took, and he said it took 8.5 years. And he said that was pretty quick in my timeline. And I thought, I don't have I might not be alive in 8.5 years. I wonder if I could do it in 50 days. And that's kind of how it came about.
And the running part obviously is challenging, but the logistics, you're talking Hawaii, you're talking Alaska, you're talking about all these different, some of the races like New York City Marathon, you ran the actual race. That was the last marathon and you broke 3 hours. But the other ones where you're going on an existing course and maybe with some people who lived in the town, how difficult was putting all that together, all the logistics that went along with it?
Yeah, well, thankfully I partnered with the organization that did the Olympic torch run across the U.S. So it was agency, and they were logistics experts. Because you're right. We literally set up and staged a race in all 50 states. So we had a starting corral. We had all the sponsors had their booths. Someone has to move all that stuff around. You know what it's like setting up one event, putting up the tents. These guys were working like unbelievably because they'd show up in the morning, they'd set it all up. If it was a point-to-point marathon, they'd break it all down and drive to the end, set up this whole festival scene again, and then break it all down, and we'd go to the next state. So there's a lot of logistics involved, a lot of schlepping around product samples, all that kind of stuff. There was just this back end that took on a life of its own beyond me just running these marathons.
When you look back on it, what are some of your fondest memories of it?
It always comes back to the people I met along the way and the stories we shared. It's similar to any marathon. You meet some of your closest friends during these races. So, and also having my family with me. And my family.
Exactly.
My mom and dad, my mom and dad. So it was very much a family affair. And, that was, 14 years ago. I just literally 14 years ago yesterday is when I finished the final marathon. And I'll never forget, I went on the Conan show. And Conan said, yeah, we got a guy here in the studio that just ran 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days. He's dead, but he's here. We're going to drag him out.
Well, my favorite part of that is you finished it. You ran New York City Marathon, And I still remember the scene you're in the movie where you're coming out of your hotel room the next morning with a baby jogger. And it's like, you've just finished this. Most people be drinks with umbrellas in them and breakfast in bed and all that. You basically got up the next morning and started running back to San Francisco, left the hotel and had to figure out, hey, which way is west?
Yeah, no, I'll never forget showing up in New Jersey, like at sunset, pushing a baby stroller, and asking these guys like on the corner, doing whatever they were doing, standing on the corner, which way's California?
So when you finish that, and when you finish something that's that overwhelming, when you finish a 50, how do you plot out your next adventure? Because it's got to be bigger, right? It's got to be more grandiose. What went into making that decision?
Yeah, I mean, my sense of what's the grandest adventure you can scheme up and can you pull it off? So, I ran across the country, as you were part of that as well. These things that I do, these endeavors are typically with a media partner, because again, I think if I just do all this stuff in a bubble, it doesn't have that much of an impact. Where, I was on television on the Live with Regis and Kelly show every morning, and, millions of people saw that. And so many people to this day, I meet at marathons and say, wow, you got me going. Like, I saw this segment on television, and I couldn't believe you're running across the country. So I started running, and now I'm running marathons. So to me, it's pulling all of these things together to make it an event for a broader audience. It really has the impact that, I was hoping to leave in my legacy.
So when you get the call from the White House that says, hey, you're running across country, you're going to be near the White House, we'd sort of like you to stop in. Did you think that was a real call, or did you feel someone was screwing with you?
I believe me, I did not think it was a real call. The person said, I have someone that wants to meet you at the White House. And she said her name's Michelle. And I said, like, Michelle? Like, I thought maybe it was like a security guard or like one of the sous chefs was named Michelle. She's like, her last name's Obama. Do you know who this is? I'm like, yes, I know who Michelle Obama is. But I actually write about that story in my next book.
So I look at all the different stuff, being on the top of a billboard, running on a treadmill, and deciding for the premiere of the film 50, you were going to run all the missions, right, of California and finish at the La Paloma Theater. It was 600 and some miles. You were running down the coast again with mom and dad in the motorhome. I like how some of this is very grandiose with running cross country, Regis and Kelly and all that type of stuff. Then others are sort of like, hey, the movie's going to be premiering. I think I'll just run 650 miles. There's not a media plan, not a sponsorship plan. It's just something that you want to do. Is that important for you to make sure that a lot of this stuff is organic? It's something that you just want to do. And sometimes they're sponsored and sometimes they're not.
It's so much, because it just brings me back to the fact that I love the sport. I love running. I love the adventure of it. And, it can be something big and grandiose, or it can just be the simple act of, going on a run with some family members or just by myself. So, that mission run, we stopped at schools along the way, but you're right. We didn't, you found out about it. You called me, we did an interview with you, but it was pretty much, it was unscripted. It was just for the adventure of it.
So with all the times you've run across the country, and are there moments you look back at and go, man, I don't know how I got through that one. That was brutal. Were there moments that you were really scared?
Plenty, both during the 50 marathons and also during the run across America, because, the stakes are high when you do something so visible like that, especially if it's going to be ongoing for so many days. So I knew that both with 50 marathons, they were counting on me. They had basically sold in ads to advertisers and sponsors for 50 days. If I died after 5 days or I couldn't keep going on, the whole thing was going to crumble. So there was a lot of pressure there. And, we've kind of discussed this before, but the first day of running 50 miles across the country when I had 3,000 to go, that first day of running 50 miles after the start at Disneyland and all the, the celebration around that and all the hype, And then it was just a roasting hot day, running through Riverside with all the smog,
Yeah.
just getting nauseous, throwing up this charcoal colored vomit, sick to my stomach, getting to the hotel, and it was bad, Bob. I was so sore, I was overheated, I was exhausted, and it was the start of the red. It wasn't at all what I was hoping for. And it was just basically because it was such a visible event, it was stressful. It was really, really stressful. So getting through some of those tough times have definitely prepared me for what we're going through right now.
What was fascinating to me is I think we did a radio interview day 1 or day 2 of that run, that 50-day run. And you were very honest in saying, after 2 days, I don't know how, 2 days, and I got to do 48 more of these. How the hell am I going to do that? You were, that's the pressure of, like you said, sponsors, national television, have to be at certain points at certain times. If you get a cramp, if you get a blister, everything's out the window and you're sort of hosed. That's a ton of pressure.
Yeah, no, it was a ton of pressure, and good and bad, right? I mean, it forces you to keep going, but it also puts a lot of stress on you, which makes it more difficult to keep going. So, having lived through a couple of those things, I've learned that you just take it one moment at a time. I got to the point where I got out of bed the next morning after the first day, and I just said, don't think about anything but getting to the sink. Just get to the sink and splash some water in your face. Okay, you did that. Get over to that little coffee maker in the room. Make some coffee. Have a cup of coffee. Okay. Pull your shorts on. Lace up one shoe. Lace up the other shoe. Don't think about you've got 50 miles to go. You've got to run a 5K and do this big presentation with a school, auditorium full of school kids. Don't think of all of that. Just think about the next moment of time. Just being the present, the here and now. And that's how you get through things like that. You just can't think 75 days from now, I'm going to be at the finish. It's just too overwhelming.
So kids are obviously a huge part of why you do what you do. And I remember chatting with you about running across the country and really being seriously surprised when you show up in these little towns and here's all these kids waiting for you. And I think in a lot of us grew up, and a lot of kids now grew up, we're running as sort of a punishment. And here you are showing up at these schools and all these kids just couldn't wait to go run with you. Did it surprise you, the response you were getting?
It did. And it also surprised me how these kids were willing to have fun with running, because you're right. So much of running is punishment. You've been bad, go run laps. Or if you're trying out for the track team or cross country, it's very competitive. And that's kind of off-putting to a lot of kids. So just to go run as a group and have fun and actually view running as play, I think that just shifted the paradigm for so many of these kids. And like I said, I get letters to this day from kids that are now runners that was the first time they ever went running and enjoyed it.
So when you were a kid, when did you realize that you had this endurance gene, right? I'm sure you were like the rest of us, baseball, football, basketball, but somehow you found that team sport stuff might not be my calling. When did you realize that?
My first childhood recollection was actually of running. I started running home from kindergarten. I don't know why. I just found that running I couldn't sit still. I mean, when you're a kid, they tell you sit still, pay attention. And what little kid wants to do is not sit still and go wild. So I remember sitting in class, just having the discipline to pay attention and sit still. And as soon as the bell rang, I thought, I'm free, go run. And that's kind of how I related to the world, is just through running. And I grew up in Southern California, and thankfully back then it was fine to let a little kid run home. And it was probably a kilometer from the school, my house. And my mom just let me do it. It was a footpath, and that's what I remember when I started running. I remember enjoying that so much more than any sort of organized event.
You also cross-train, right? You'd be back in the day, you were windsurfing, and I know you do stand-up paddleboard, you do elliptigo, and you've obviously, when you're going to get on elliptigo, you're not just going to get elliptigo, you're going to go hundreds of miles on an elliptigo and go from one city or one state to another. talk a little bit about some of the other stuff you like to do, because a lot of runners are, I'm just a runner. That's what I do. I don't do this cross training stuff. But you've always embraced it. And how helpful has that been to your running?
I think from a longevity standpoint, it's been paramount. I mean, I've never had a running related injury in, 2.5 decades of running ultra marathons, pretty hardcore. I've never suffered an overuse injury. So I think that cross training and strength building is critical. I never sit down as well. I mean, I notice, Bob, you're sitting down, shame. I'm standing up. So even during my interviews, everything, when I write my books, everything I'm doing is standing up. I have this HIIT training routine, high intensity interval training with just body weight. And it's about 12 to 15 minutes. It's push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, chair dips, and burpees. And I do maybe 4 or 5 sets throughout the course of the day. So I did a set right before we got on the interview. Afterward, I'll do another set. I definitely run in between, but I think that I'm constantly working out. I mean, I think training and life are synonymous. I don't see them as separated. So thankfully, I work at home. Well, a lot of us work at home now. So there's no reason not to just work out throughout the course of the day. I mean, why compartmentalize it into your 1 hour run or your 1 hour at the gym? I just say spread it out. You get a lot more, I think, bang for the buck when you're spreading it out through the course of the day, and you just feel better.
So one of our last interviews, you talked about wanting to run a marathon in all the nations of the world. I think it was 208 of them, but every day there was a new nation coming in and one going out. And with the way the world is now, is that something that's even going to be feasible?
It's funny because I wanted to do it in 1 year. Like that had always been my goal, was to do it in 1 year. Well, a guy heard about this, a great guy, I should say. His name is Nick Butter. And he's like, I'm going to go do this. His idea wasn't to run in 1 year. It was just to run a marathon in every country of the world.
Yeah.
And he didn't want, I wanted to do like a 50-50-50 model where it's people can join me and I'd have like runners in every country come out. And Nick just decided, that's going to be impossible to pull off. I'm just going to go do it. I'm going to cross the border. And he pulled it off, which is great. We got together, we went running. He said, I'll help you in any way I can. So he was on board to help me coordinate this thing, to do it in 1 year. What he did and what I could get away with are two different things, because he kind of just slipped across certain borders like Iraq and Iran and did this marathon where I'm a little more high profile. Like I couldn't just do that.
No, yeah.
So, but he thought he knew enough people in these countries that could help. So it was moving forward full steam. I had a couple sponsors who were looking at it pretty hard, Virgin Sport being one of them. And then we all know what happened. So whether that dream dies with me, Bob, I don't know. It's hard to see beyond COVID and the pandemic right now, but maybe the world will be in a better place 5 or 10 years from now, and I'll still be running and it can come together.
So over time, you've done, in terms of major events, you've done Badwater, you've done Western States, you've done all these, all the majors, ultras around the world. Are there personal favorites?
Western States is always going to be my favorite because it was my first 100 miler.
Yeah.
So Western States, obviously, Badwater, I got the hat on. So we both know Chris Kostman, a good guy. I've done Badwater 10 times, and that's a race that's so iconic and it's unlike anything else. I've run across the Atacama Desert on the 4 Deserts Challenge. Atacama was an amazing place. So I've done a lot of stuff. I mean, another thing we haven't really discussed, I'm not even sure you know much about it, but I was a U.S. athlete ambassador, and I was sent to Central Asia on a sports diplomacy envoy. So I ran across Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan.
I remember all the stands. You had the whole stand collection.
What an exotic place that was, unlike anywhere I'd ever been before. And there's a healthy running culture. So, I was supposed to go back and be the ambassador for the inaugural Tashkent Marathon this year, which is Tashkent is the capital of Uzbekistan. And that was supposed to be on March 15th. I was literally going to the airport when the embassy called, literally going there, and they said, you're not going to go. you can't go. It's getting to the point where we're starting to shut things down. So that was how my year was supposed to start, with the inaugural Tashkent Marathon in Uzbekistan.
One of the things that impressed me as well, when you did the 50-50-50, you were every day there you're checking your weight, checking muscle damage. And to a certain degree, you were a little bit of a guinea pig. Nobody had really done what you were doing. And what did they come away with from that? Because it seemed like your weight, very little variation. And in terms of muscle damage, not much at all. What science came out of some of these journeys of yours?
Yeah, they were looking at those very parameters and those biomarkers that you just discussed. So they were looking at, and even cortisone levels. They were looking at stress levels, muscle damage. They found nothing. They said that your body is stronger now than it was into it. Yeah, I mean, you're missing a couple toenails, but other than that, you've actually grown stronger over 50 days. So whether that was, I really, I mean, I think you remember, I had really bulked up prior to that on purpose, because I thought, having a lot of muscle mass, you're going to lose a lot of muscle. So bulk up so that, you're not completely emaciated halfway through. You saw me, you used to say I look like a football player.
Especially on the cover of the book. People think you're like 6'3", 250.
So whether that helped or not, I'm not sure. If I'd been leaner, maybe I could have gone faster, but maybe I would have broken down. I don't know. But the way, I came out of it was stronger than the way I went into it. Now,
I was going to say, did you surprise yourself? Like when you run a sub-3 in your last 50 marathons, did you surprise yourself?
No, I kept feeling better and better every marathon. So I really did. There was a couple of tough ones, flying from Maui after a really hot marathon to Arizona to run in Phoenix when it was like 104 degrees. Oh. And that was tough. There were challenging marathons, but overall I could feel myself getting stronger. And I could also feel like locking, you could just lock into a pace at a certain cadence, like around a 325, 330 marathon, and not even get your heart rate up over 110. Literally, just, lock into it and just get the pendulum arm swing going, kind of the mid-foot strike, the shorter, choppier, quicker foot turnover. Felt like I could just easily run a 330 marathon without even breaking a sweat.
How have you changed in terms of what you eat while you run? Has that changed at all? Because I remember the days of having a pizza delivered, rolling up like a big taco, and having it delivered while you're running. Hey, I'm at the corner of 3rd now, and bring me a pepperoni. Have you changed?
Never pepperoni. It was always Hawaiian style. Pepperoni is too spicy.
Hawaiian style.
Always Hawaiian.
What have you changed in terms of what your body wants during those long runs?
During the runs, I typically have kind of cleaned up the things I eat. So inevitably, Bob, anytime I do like a long run where there's some visibility into it, I'll come around a corner and there'll be a pizza guy there. Like someone will order me a pizza. It's almost like, it's hilarious. So I'll eat a piece of pizza if someone orders it for me. But now I kind of stay with more athletic-minded foods. So I really like Hammer Nutrition products. I like nut butters as far as sustenance, but not so much pizza anymore.
No more pizza. Hate that. And for 2021, if the world turns back to normal, what will you be wanting to do event-wise?
I'd love to get back and do I hope the Tashkent Marathon comes online, because I'd love to go to Uzbekistan and launch that. I'd also, looking at a run across Greece. So as you know, I'm 100% Greek.
Yep.
So I'm looking at a run across Greece with Nat Geo Greece, and highlighting all of the ancient ruins. So basically following kind of Homer's footsteps, if you will, which would be amazing to me. I'm doing a lot of work with Spartan Trail. So the Spartan race has now just a pure play trail race.
Yes.
So with them. I'm also launching a 100-miler here in San Francisco proper, called the Golden Gate Trail Classic. It'll start in San Francisco, go across the Golden Gate Bridge, all around Mount Tam, the Marin Headlands, those places, those iconic.
Oh, yeah.
And then back across the Golden Gate Bridge to finish in San Francisco. And that was that was scheduled for It's supposed to be November 5th this year.
Also, he was already on the schedule. He already had the permits and everything else.
Yeah, had is the operative word.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Now it's tentative for July of 2021.
Love it. Hey, Dean, as always, thank you for taking so much time. And one of my favorite memories is you deciding when we were launching Catalina Eco Marathon that, and you were kind enough to say, I'll come over and run the marathon. And you're like, no. We need to do more than that. Why don't we start at your office in Solana Beach and, I'll run 100 miles up to Long Beach and then I'll take the boat over. No, then I'll kayak over and then run the Eco Marathon. I'm like, you are a crazy man. And that's exactly what you did. You ran 100 miles. And this is before people there really wasn't tracking at that point. I think people were just sort of guessing where you were going to be. And people would show up and go, okay, he's going to be here in San Juan Capistrano, and you'd already run for 50 miles, and people would show up to run 3 miles, and they'd be sprinting for 3 miles. Every time you came around a corner, you thought I can relax a little bit, but a group was waiting and running you into the ground the whole time.
It's phenomenal that happens. I know the guys that really kill me are the cyclists where, you're running and they're like, hey, I'm going to get a workout with you for the next 10 miles. I'm like, you're on a bike and you want me to push the pace so you can get a workout. I've been running 80 miles, but I miss those times and I can't wait for those times to come back.
Then paddling, when you think about the worst thing you can do before running a marathon, getting into a kayak and having your legs all scrunched up for 26 miles across the Pacific from Long Beach to Catalina, it was probably not the best preparation for the marathon the next day.
No, and what stung the worst is having you fly over in a helicopter waving at me like, have fun.
I'm in a chopper.
Enjoy that paddle.
Love it. Dean the Dream, as always. Hopefully, we'll be able to do this again, add an event sometime soon, because I miss that. I miss being at Boston, being at New York, all the great places we get to go normally.
Well, it was good sharing some time with you virtually. I mean, that's what we got right now, and it's been really great. But I agree. I look forward to next time we can just do a man hug.
Dean Karnazes has been our guest again. Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Nice mustache. You're the man. I'm gonna have to grow one.